Who's this?
Your target. Your mission is to use your NLP training to win over the individual on the photograph in your envelope. And when I say win over, I do mean in the biblical sense.
Easy.
Posh girls love a bit of rough.
We'll see about that, yeah?
We certainly will.
Yeah. Yeah, baby! Yeah!
So this is Louis, and if you can tell by the title, this is going to be a lazy review of Kingsman, The Secret Service, which is an older movie. It's from 2014. I've had it recommended to me several times by various people. They all told me that as a Bond fan, I would enjoy this movie, and now that I've watched it, I can tell you that it's too bad, because this movie could have been so much better if it weren't for the terrible choreographer, whoever it was on this movie. That person deserves an F-, because the jerky cam, fast-forwarded action scenes, it weighs an otherwise good movie down. There was one scene with, what's his name? Colin Firth? See, and this is a problem up front. I don't remember any of the characters' names. But it's Colin Firth, I believe it is. He plays the character Eggsy. There's a scene in a movie where he does some very limited parkour, leaving his apartment, his mother's apartment. He jumps down some walls and stairs, and that's all you need to do. That's, you know, if you ever watch the Jason Bourne films, it's the same thing there, where the parkour by itself is fine, but whenever you get into the car chases, that's when it's jerky cam and fast cuts and all that, and it sucks. So, unfortunately with this movie, there's a lot about it that works and I like, but the action sequences over and over and over again, it's just abysmal. And I'm sorry, like, by the end of it, I had a smile on my face. Like, I liked the film, and I think that it's like a good B movie that could have actually been better if they would have made certain changes. And I'm surprised. I'm surprised in a way that the director, the choreographer, everyone involved didn't realize during the editing that that was a terrible mistake, that the fast cut fighting, shooting included, that sucks. So I gotta say that up front, because while a lot of the comedy works and some of the twists work, the writing in this seems pretty crisp. There's a little bit of there's parts of it that try to lean into the gray territory for the Kingsmen as an organization, but I didn't believe it from the get-go. One of the twists, which I'm not going to spoil, disappointed me, because as it relates to this sort of organization, there was a similar question in Bond. I forget, License to Kill, I think it is, where there's a question as to the morality of MI6 and the role of the double O's, you know, the role of being Bond, this sort of spy, and having a license to kill, like, and what you do with it, and how attached you are to the organization itself, and going rogue, and that sort of thing. And did it really work in the Bond series? Honestly, not really. I don't seem to regard that film in recollection very highly. When the films got overly serious and tried to play with morality, they seemed to really crumble. In many ways, this is, I can give it this compliment, it's the anti-Bond. I think that one of the best things that this movie had going for it was Samuel L. Jackson in playing Valentine. It was a teeny bit over the top for my liking, but the overall scenario, the sentiment behind what he was doing, why, and all of those that united with him, That all worked. It all made sense. His motivations, his irrationality, his hypocrisy and frailty as a person, a lot of that worked from a narrative standpoint. So I can tell you that at least with Samuel L. Jackson and that particular character and the central antagonist of the film, like that plot, that aspect to the story, that worked very well. Another aspect of the movie that worked well was the development of Colin Firth in the movie to become an agent or a Kingsman. That also worked very well. It probably could have been tweaked a little bit in terms of the story, touched up a little bit to make it a little bit more attention-grabbing. I sort of felt myself losing interest while watching some of that. While it was decently paced, I don't know if some of the challenges that were given to the initiates to potentially take the seat of the fallen agent, that worked up until a point. And honestly, like I say, it could have been done better, but in large part it did work. So a decent chunk of this film did work. The only thing I will say is the part with Michael Caine towards the end. And I won't say any more than that because it's a spoiler. That I kind of blinked at and was like, okay, that's a little bit of a plot hole right there. But I'm just going to leave it there. Because it's there. Did it really work? Did it really need to happen? No, but it was done for narrative reasons. They wanted to puff up Colin Firth and knock down Michael Caine as a snob and show that he was ultimately wrong about his pessimism towards the working class or what have you in the UK. I understand narratively why they did that, but it's a plot hole, which I don't like. I'll reiterate, though, that Samuel L. Jackson and his role as the villain, it's very fashionable, including now. It's very fashionable for him to be the villain. It's very fashionable for him to be and I mean this in a positive sense, for him to be like an eco-fascist, an eco-terrorist, where he sees those concerned about environmentalism as basically the elite, and that anyone who's not concerned about the environment, they're basically cannon fodder. And in many ways, he says it just a virus, like they're part of the virus, and they're irredeemable. The fact that so many, including in this film Obama and his entire cabinet, signs on with Samuel L. Jackson to basically doom who knows how many people to die. They don't even specify what threshold Valentine is going to stop the doomsday plot. Like, he just continues it. And it's done in a crazy sort of James Bond fashion, which I appreciated, because it's easy for, there to be a challenge for, the heroes. It's unlike the subversion in Watchmen, in that film and the series, where by the time they get to the end, it's too late, which isn't really a spoiler. It's been out for a long time. But that is a subversion of that scenario, where they go to defeat the bad guy, and it's, the subversion is it's too late. In the Bond series, there's always time allotted to the heroes to stop the villain, and the villain sets up a system that without them and their direct input, they're relying on technology and other such things that they could change to just, it's like a kill switch or a dead man switch or what have you, mutually assured destruction, where automation takes over. So no matter what happens to you, the villain, you still accomplish your end goal. But what I like about this in the Bond series is that it makes sense within the context of the lore that the villain isn't trying to accomplish this for the sake of doing any good, that in reality it is simply about them. And including with Blofeld, none of this is about anything other than Blofeld obtaining more power or taking control or achieving his ends and perpetuating himself closer to worldwide power. So without him, it doesn't matter. There's no goal beyond that of moving up the ladder towards more and more centralized power for him. So if he's dead, then nothing else really matters. The organization of Spectre doesn't matter. His doomsday plot doesn't matter. There's nothing to accomplish beyond that. And in this film, despite the attempt of Samuel L. Jackson to claim otherwise, in the end, and there's like subversive sort of writing in this, which I appreciated, which satirizes and ultimately lampoons in a smart way the Bond series. I appreciate the fact that even in the end, despite Samuel L. Jackson pretending to be something other than like a Bond villain, he's still just that. He's still that in the end, despite all of his lecturing and pontification and witty bullshit. He's still just that, which I appreciate in the writing sense of the irony of that no matter how smart he thinks he is still just a Bond villain. And if he actually meant any of the shit he said in this movie, he would have created a system that did not require his direct input. He wouldn't have had it so that it required him to achieve these ends if he was dead serious about his goals, and including that of all the people he brought in. It's a scorching criticism of internationalists, and I appreciate that. That's why I say it's fashionable, because I do feel this about these people, that like Samuel L. Jackson in the film, they don't care. They don't care. It's all about them. It's all about their own protection. It's about walling themselves off and being the elite. And they can believe and espouse whatever ideological horseshit, but it still comes down to an us versus them disposition. They view themselves as the us, and they view all of us as the them, those of us that have to live with the consequences of their policies, while all of them are in a bunker together. That is very fashionable in the sense that it is a very accurate and cutting criticism of contemporary environmental policy and people that espouse environmentalism. There are consequences to our presence here on Earth, but I don't believe that for a second the Western world should have to do a goddamn thing, pay a goddamn penny, when it's the third world fucking it up for the rest of us. Okay, we're not dumping all this shit in the oceans. It's the third world. We're not the one polluting the fucking air and polluting the ozone layer. We handled that shit. It's fucking China and all these shithole nations that are doing all of it. And meanwhile, we're all getting lectured, and the reason is because we're white, by all these elitists. So this aspect of this movie, I'm surprised it got published. This is the kind of film that doesn't get made in contemporary Hollywood, or ever in Hollywood for that matter. I mean, this is the kind of film that just doesn't get made because it doesn't have the right messaging. It doesn't matter that there's girl power bullshit in this film. Two of these characters, one of which is a Mary Sue all the way up until the end, which I appreciated because I think that was particularly intentional as, again, like subversive writing, and it is a play into the sort of henchwoman in the Bond series. I think that's the same deal. It's a satirization of sorts, and I appreciate it, and it's played straight at several points, and including at the end, it's played straight. I'll say that overall, I have a positive view of the film. I appreciated several of the music tracks in the film, especially with Give It Up by Casey and the Sunshine Band towards the end. I laughed out loud when that song started playing, like that gimmick of the countdown and then that comes on. I really appreciated that. That's some macabre humor right there. The writers behind this did it as a love letter towards the Bond series, but I think the mistake they made was failing to do that when it came to the action scenes. They wanted this to be a Bourne movie, and they don't actually understand the Bourne action scenes, because the Bourne action scenes, in large part, did have cuts for the sake of editing and transition for, between what moves they're doing, but it wasn't fast-forwarded choppy crap, and it didn't look fake. Is it over the top? Yes. But there's the excuse in the films of the pills that they take. They give them like superhuman whatever. So there's an excuse that they have for how they're able to do that, how Bourne is able to be like a Superman compared to just the regular agents that he deals with. And it's a brutal fight when he's dealing with another agent, or however you'd say it, asset for the agency. I don't know if they just didn't have a good enough choreographer. They were unable to get proper choreography in the film for the fights and the shooting. I fundamentally don't understand how that they made such a misstep, and especially towards the end when it came to the Kingsman versus henchwoman scene. Like, again, super fake CG heavy, and I was like, woo, man, like, when you have a small budget, do not go CG. You gotta go as real as you can, even if it doesn't look as flashy, and even if you have a hard time making it over the top, you can still do it. Bond could do it back in the day, so can you. Don't lean into CG. That is the wrong mistake to make. And when it came to Joker with Todd Phillips, he realized that if you're going low budget, don't do CG. Don't do it. Go practical effects always. You can still be over the top and use practical effects. Don't use CG to this degree. Like I've been saying, I appreciate this film. I appreciated all of the actors in it. Everyone seemed to land their part in large part. There's a lot about this film that I can appreciate. Narratively, the risks that it took, I can appreciate that. There's a sequel and a third movie that's like a prequel on the way, so it's fine. Although I'm not sure if I'm going to watch the next one because it has like mixed reviews, so you'll be the decider. Let me know in the comment section if the second movie's worth watching or not. I don't really know, but I saw that it's gotten like mixed reviews compared to the first. I read, I think, that Channing Tatum's in it, or Channing Tatum is in it, and like they have an American version of the Kingsman, which I kind of was like, ooh, I don't know if that's going to work. So you guys in the comment section let me know if the second movie's cringe or not, like whether I should watch it or not. But I can say for the first, I'll recommend it. You know, a rent for like $4 on YouTube or whatever streaming service, or if you just want to, you know, sail the high seas, so to say. Whatever you want to do, I would recommend watching the film. It's worth a watch. It's better than a bunch of different movies I've watched this year that weren't as good. But like I say, the major, you know, F that I got to give it, where it is just a straight F, are the action scenes. I really don't want to give it that, but it's what you're going to get. The action scenes in this film sucked. Way too reliant on CG. And the cuts, the fast-forwarding, it does not work. I've seen people praise the church scene online, like people were saying how cool it was. I rolled my eyes at it. I don't get it. Legitimately, I'm a fan of Bourne, I'm a fan of Bond, I'm a fan of a multitude of sci-fi action, including many spy movies. These are my favorite genres of movies. When I'm watching an action scene and I'm going like, hire a better choreographer, slow this down, have it be more brutal. You don't need to show this as being so over the top and your agent as being unkillable. You can have it more gritty. You can have it more ground and pound. I understand why you're going for shock violence and shock humor at certain points, but overall, I think that that's one of the things that weighs down the film, where it was just a simple mistake. Even including in like Austin Powers, I remember that like even they realized that if you're going to go low budget, practical is better than being... And you can still be over the top. Look at Austin Powers. It's way, way over the top. Never use CG when you can use practical effects. Ever, ever, ever. And especially when you're doing a lower budget film. This should be like 101 taught in every classroom as it relates to making a film. And I'm going to stress this because I know this to be a fact about making film. And I'm going to cite you Joker. There are several other films, especially indie films, that people can defend what I'm saying here with. Whenever you have a smaller budget, don't ever use cheap CG. Always use practical effects. And if you got to do reshoots because it doesn't work in post, if you're in editing and it doesn't work and you got to do fucking reshoots, do them. Do them then. Don't ever go CG. It should be the last resort that you have. Because it simply weighs down what would otherwise be a great film. But it's not. It's a good film. It's good, and that's it. There's a lot about it that I appreciate, including the comedy. Like I say, I want to really like this movie, but man, dude, those action scenes legit pissed me off. And maybe I'll be the lone voice in saying that, because I see a lot of people, filleting this film for the action. But dude, I hated it. The best part of this film is when it's playing its story straight, when it's dealing with its villain's goals, and when it's dealing with comedy. Like, every single time you cut to one of those scenes, it worked. The only exception, like I say, the training sequences, that kind of a little bit flubby there. Maybe you could change it a little bit, tweak it a little bit, cut it down a little bit. I'm not really sure what exactly it was about that didn't work for me, and it was just parts of it. A lot of this movie worked, but it's such a shame that some of it, in the scenes I've already said, it just didn't work, and it just pissed me off. I was like, fuck, man. This could have been a great film, but I gotta knock it down to still a recommend, but it's a good film, not a great one. However, I will leave it there and say that, like I say, it's a braver film than many that you'll watch this year, 2014. You'll have to pardon me being last in line to actually see this. But, like I say, it's a recommend. And I'm surprised it was able to get away with what it did. So thanks for listening, and hopefully I'll do some more.